And we are back with 2 more hours to go. So Florida Atlantic taking on UAB this weekend in the what is that, Conference USA? Yeah, Conference USA Championship game. And every Thursday night, Lane Kiffin hosts a radio show. And we just learned that he is not going to make his own radio show this week. Lane Kiffin not wanting to talk, that's a new one. I wonder why he's not going to make it. I say that because there are rumors flying that he could be meeting with yet another suitor. Reportedly met with Arkansas on Sunday. Who could he be meeting with today that would cause him to miss his radio show? Apparently he taped a segment for his own show, but he will not be there. Yeah. How can you not show up at your own radio show? Unless you're meeting with like the chancellor of another school.
Job interview got in the way.
Yeah, okay, let's talk to Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. He's been all over a number of stories, including Clay Helton staying at Southern Cal. Bruce, always great to have you on. Appreciate it. But before we get to the Helton story, I have to ask you about Lane Kiffin. You spent a lot of time covering Lane Kiffin in your career. We just reported that Kiffin will not make his own radio show tonight. We know he met with Arkansas. There's rumors out there about other schools, including Ole Miss. What are your thoughts on the Lane train returning to the SEC?
Selfishly, Paul, I think it would be fun to have him back in the SEC. I'm sure maybe, Nick Saban might not love that, or maybe
No.
Greg Sankey might not love that, but he keeps things interesting, right? And he is a good offensive coach, and having been down at FAU, he's done a nice job there. I think the question, and look, Hunter Yurchek, who's the AD at Arkansas, he was the AD at Houston, who was close to hiring Lane back then before they hired Major Applewhite. I think the challenges there is, how comfortable are you with Lane as the head coach? But in terms of what I think he will bring them, if and when he takes the job, I think he makes them relevant again. And now, can he build an offense? And I think he can recruit. I think it would be a really interesting hire. Now look, he keeps it interesting. He really does. And I think that, if you're an AD, you know what you're getting into. And I think you kind of make sure you got everybody on board with, hey, this is how Lane's going to be, and this is what we signed up for, and we'll go from there.
Bruce, you know athletic directors all over the country, and I'd say 2 years ago there would have been a reluctance, reticence to hire him. Do you think it's still there?
In some corners, yeah, I think it is probably still there. But look, in fairness to Lane, those guys, those people who are ADs, they don't know the day-to-day, having worked with them or not. So I think they're going to be making that determination on perception and to some degree hearsay. Your point is a good one, though. It's like 2 years ago. He's been there for a couple of years. It's not like he's completely off the grid. No matter where he could go to the Dakotas, and he put the Dakotas back on the grid because that's who Lane, kind of how he is. But, he hasn't had anything alarming or any kind of behavior at this point that, if he did, it didn't surface to the point where it became a major issue for FAU. So, that expression about time, and I think a lot of people move on, and I don't know if Lane Kiffin is much different as a person than he was 2 or 3 years ago, but I think people are maybe a little more comfortable at it and say, okay, that was a few years ago. Let's see how he is now, if and when he does re-enter the SEC.
Talking to Bruce Feldman, and Bruce, when Saban lost the other night, I couldn't help but reflect back on your just incredible piece shortly after the national championship game, where Saban walks into the meeting, and I think it was Dan Enos who wasn't there. He had already bailed out, and you talked about the staff issues. And I wonder, and I realize it's still early, but just thinking back to what you learned then and what you hear every day, Just what do you think is going on with Nick Saban beyond the obvious? He's recruiting right now, but he may also have to recalibrate his staff again.
Yeah, I think Paul. I think it shows just how hard it is to stay on top of college football. I think it's remarkable that Nick Saban and Alabama has stayed on as long on top. I mean, USC, Nebraska, Miami, in this modern era, and I'm not talking about, back 50 years ago or anything, but just in the last 25 years, no one's been able to stay on top for more than a couple of years because it's just really hard. There's all sorts of issues with the entitlement that you get from the complacency, staff chemistry, all these things. And I think what you get sometimes is, and what was reflected, and I appreciate the kind words for that story, you have a lot of guys who probably couldn't stay at Alabama, and the work environment is challenging to work for Nick Saban. I mean, guys burn out from that. The ones who don't are Jeff Allen and Scott Cochran, who are in a, really hands-on with the players, but kind of I don't want to say the good cops to the bad cop with Saban, but I think that makes it harder. And this is the first year that Saban's had a starting quarterback miss games. That's really unusual. It's not to say they didn't have any key injuries before, because they did, but I just think there's going to be a time when you're going to have a year or two where not everything goes right, but where a couple of things just don't go right. You saw that in the Auburn game. It could have gone the other way. I mean, I wouldn't bet against Nick Saban. As long as he's there, I think Alabama's going to be a force and is going to be a top 5 caliber program. But I think what we saw this year was this was the first time. I don't think they were, especially without Tua, I don't think they were significantly more talented than the teams they were playing. They certainly last year in the national title game weren't more talented than Clemson. I think with the LSU offense, they're not more talented than LSU. And when that happens, unless you're on top of your game every week, or when you play those teams, you're vulnerable. And that was a vulnerable team that, lost to some good teams. And, I don't think the sky is falling there, but I just think it's just really hard to stay just as high up on top of the college football world on the mountaintop as they've been.
Bruce Feldman with us. Bruce, you've reported a lot on Clay Helton. Why did the university end up sticking with him after it seemed a couple of weeks ago that he was a dead duck and long gone? What happened?
I think a lot of it has to do with the new leadership at USC, especially Carol Folt, the president, and to some degree the newer AD, Mike Bohn, who came in. And I think what was at issue was you have to start with this. This is a university that has been dealing with all sorts of scandals. It's not just in the athletic department, but beyond that. And I think what she looked at is saying, okay, whoever we hire, and let's say we were going to go after Urban Meyer, he becomes the face of the university because he's won championships, he's very visible, and there's no secret he had the issues last year with Zach Smith, and he was suspended 3 games. From my understanding, that part of it was going to be something that was a non-starter for them. And I think from my reporting, from what I've heard, is there was a real feeling of comfort with Clay Helton and the direction the program has gone in the last year. They had a really bad 2018, won 5 games, made some changes, and, despite some big quarterback injuries, I mean, they beat a really good Utah team with their 3rd-string quarterback. They won 8 games. The team never quit on him. And so I think given the fact of he has a really big buyout, and he and the staff do, and from what I've been told, it's actually more than has been reported. So I don't think it was a situation where, hey, there'll just be somebody else who will write a check and the problem solved. From what I'm told, it's just not that simple when it comes to that situation. And I just feel like they looked at it and said, you know what, we're gonna give him a little more time here, and we'll reevaluate a year from now and see what our options are. But remember, this is a real leadership change that happened there, and I just think they felt comfortable with Clay Helton to be the guy to carry this forward and see if he can take the next step as a program, which could be as a team that can win a Pac-12 title again.
Bruce, I realize you work at Fox, and this may be an awkward question, but is it your best guess Urban Meyer will stay there for another season? And he's been very successful in his first season on TV.
Yeah, I mean, again, and as you prefaced it the right way, I do work at Fox. So take it for what it's worth. But I'm on the same conference calls with Urban on Mondays, and he is genuinely passionate about doing what he's doing right now. He's really inspired by it. He's really, amped up to do it. I think he's seen. No, I'm not talking just like ratings, but the feedback. I think he's been very driven by that. Now, look, I know nothing replaces the passion he had for coaching, but let's keep in mind, I mean, I did a couple of those Ohio State games last year. He had serious, significant health issues where he was down on one knee at one point in agonizing pain. It happened multiple games. Like, the cyst in his head and the issues the pain that comes with it, especially, whether it's stress-related or not, when you're Urban Meyer, the way he runs a football program, it's basically fourth and inches 24/7, 365. That's not the healthiest situation. So I think between I think how he's been kind of re-energized by the TV work, I don't think he's in a rush to jump back, certainly into college football, because I think he left a really good situation at Ohio State, and I'm not sure he's going to walk into a situation. There's a situation out there better for him than the one he left behind a year ago. So just change for change sake to me doesn't seem like something he's going to jump to right now.
And I'll say this, I don't work at Fox, I work at ESPN, but he has been fantastic in the times I've seen him this year, and that has surprised a lot of people. He's been one of the biggest stars on television this fall, and I didn't think we'd be saying that. Bruce, Jim Harbaugh, I mean, the fact that he's 0-5 now against Ohio State, and it's really not creating much stir is maybe the biggest surprise of the season. But do you see any movement there?
I don't, because here's why, Paul. All we've heard for years, dating back to when he was a player at Michigan and certainly in the NFL as a quarterback, was how he was the ultimate competitor. Well, the ultimate competitor is 0-5 in the game that matters more than any other that he coaches in. And not only that, the last 2 years, they've gotten their butts kicked. If I'm Jim Harbaugh and I'm that big of a competitor and that much of a Michigan man, how can he walk away with such a gaping wound open, on his record there, going 0-5 and getting whooped the last 2 years? Now, they were close a couple of years ago, but the last 2 years haven't been close at all. I don't know how he would walk away from that. So, and if you're Michigan, I don't know. Like, one of the challenges with whether it's USC or in this discussion, like, who are you going to get where you're that confident he's going to go in there and beat Ohio State? I mean, Urban Meyer's not going to come back and coach the other team, so I don't know. Nick Saban's not going to leave what he has to go to Michigan. And the list of guys you'd have that much confidence in, it's a pretty short list. I mean, there's other really good coaches out there, but Jim Harbaugh was a top 3 coach in college, given what he had done both in the NFL and at Stanford. He walked in there, and he's getting his head rattled against the lockers by Ohio State. So I think he's still got to try to figure out, what can I do to narrow the gap, because right now it's sizable.
Finally, Bruce, it seems like it's going to happen with Jason Garrett. Could happen late tonight for all we know. But do you believe Lincoln Riley is the top candidate, or do you think that has just a media sensation story that has been propagated now for about 15 weeks?
I feel like that's more of a media story. I do. I mean, look, I could see Lincoln Riley definitely being on the NFL's radar. He's a great play caller. He's a creative offensive mind. But he has a really good situation right now at Oklahoma, where he's worked for probably the best AD in the country in Joe Castiglione. He's got a young family there. He's got a staff that he's put together. They've gotten better. By the way, the arch rival to them, Texas, they're struggling right now. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Lincoln Riley's just waiting for the first big NFL opportunity to jump. I think he knows the NFL will be there, down the road. Let me I'm in a good position to make a run at winning a national title or two. Let me ride this out. And as for Jerry Jones, I mean, you go in there, it's Jerry Jones' show. I mean, I'm not sure if Lincoln Riley, evaluates that at the end of the season and thinks that's the best place for him at this time.
We could go on all day, but time is limited for Bruce. Bruce, thank you for coming on. Fantastic stuff.
Always a pleasure, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Nobody better than Bruce Feldman, We'll take a short break, get your reaction to that and more as we continue here on Thursday afternoon. Yeah, it's still Thursday afternoon. It means upset alert. So any big upsets going down this weekend, Danny Brown?
What's up, Paul? Yeah, no Kubiak, who tends to sort of game show host this segment better than anyone could, but I will try to live up to his legacy. Let's start
I wondered why I didn't have a headache today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, screaming Cougs, as we know him back here in the control room. But, let's start in the American Conference, where Memphis is taking on Cincinnati in the championship. They are 9-point favorites. Paul, is Memphis on upset alert?
They are not.
All right, we'll leave the alarm out of it. Let's move it to the Big 12 then and keep the spread the same. 9 points. Oklahoma favored over Baylor. Are the Sooners on upset alert?
Not feeling the love for the Bears. I'm sorry.
Wow, no upsets this championship. What's the deal? LSU, 6.5-point favorites in Atlanta against Georgia. We heard from Chip. He seemed pretty confident.
Chip was chippy.
Tigers on upset alert?
What do you think?
No, no, I don't think so at all. I think it's going to be a blowout. Let's keep it moving. No upsets so far. The Atlantic Coast Conference, Clemson, hosting Virginia right here in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium.
Keep going.
All right, yeah, we won't even mention that one.
I mean, it would be an upset if this game is interesting.
The Big Ten, Ohio State, 16.5-point favorites against Wisconsin. Any upset alert there?
No.
Wow.
By the way, I have one for you.
Is there any games left on our list?
I don't think we've done the game out in Santa Clara yet.
Could it have something to do with these people angry behind me, potentially?
Listen, it has nothing to do with my love for Utah. Hit the bell, Oregon.
Utah versus Oregon. Let's sound the alarm, and let's sound it twice because it is a big-time upset alert.
I mean, I can't get any more bad press from Utah, so why worry?
Put them on the alert.
Why try to suck up to them now?
So basically, Paul, you said of all the conference title games, you're not expecting anything close to an upset anywhere except for the Pac-12 title game.
Well, listen, I mean, there's about 30 conference championship games. I mean, I'm not going into the fine print on the agate page, but of the major ones, this is the one I like the most.
Yeah.
And the reason why I like the upset, I think Utah players have been less than focused on this game. I think they've been way too focused on me.
I agree.
Back to the calls, and a fan of a program that doesn't have to worry too much about SEC championship games, and that's Cat Daddy.
Oh, man, that was hot this time.
I remember South Carolina was in the game 9 years ago.
All right, we won one ACC championship, and that was before it was a cupcake conference.
You're right.
But now here's the rumors going around today. They're looking for an offensive coordinator for Munchausen.
Okay.
They're talking about Bobo. But I'm saying to myself, these radio commentators, I'm saying to myself, dude, the pond ain't got a lot of fish in it. If Munchausen only gets one more year, how is he going to find a good offensive coordinator to come in here knowing he might not be here by a year?
Well, KD, have you ever been desperate for a job?
No.
And by the way, do not ask me the same question.
Well, I've never had to worry about getting a job. I'd work any job I can get, but for a year, if I knew I might not have that job.
But what you have to understand, though, Cat Daddy, I mean, I don't know if Bobo's interested. I'm sure he's getting a buyout after getting fired. So if he gets the job, he gets his buyout, and he probably gets a 2 or 3 year deal because that's what his agent will negotiate. So what does he care?
Point will take him, Mr. Finebaum. That's why you the man.
Thank you very much. Glad somebody realizes that. Mark is up next in Texas. Hey, Mark.
Paul, good afternoon, partner. What a great time of the year it is to be a college football fan.
It really is.
It doesn't get any better. And we better enjoy this, too, by the way, because the next 5, 6 years, we might be considering this the good old days.
Listen, I'm already considering this the good old days.
I'm with you, but I don't even know if I got 5 years left in me.
No, I don't think I do. I don't have 5 minutes left if I go to Utah.
Yeah, well, you know what? Why doesn't University of Hawaii have a team in the Final Four every year?
That is funny. I just got invited to be the commencement speaker at Utah this year.
Oh, you did?
I'm gonna wear an Alabama jersey.
Here's my question for you.
Okay.
Before we get too far afield, You know, Eli Manning, does he have any coaching blood in him, you think?
You know, it's interesting. I left New York this morning. There was a big article in the papers up there about Eli starting Monday night or whenever I think Monday night at Philadelphia. And I think that's a nice way to go out. I mean, Eli's been resting now for 2 months. I think Eli Manning would be a really good coach.
I'm thinking Ole Miss myself. I know. What are the
You talk about a buzz. I mean, the best player in school history walking in as a head coach.
It should draw some recruits. If if nothing else, to get them. I don't know. I don't know where he would find his staff.
I mean, they've already changed the speed limits. Hey, it wouldn't be hard to find a staff. I mean, I can tell you right now who his offensive coordinator would be.
Who's that?
Peyton Manning. I mean, he needs the money, doesn't he?
Tennessee, that's going to be delicious.
He can bring Archie and Peyton and Cooper in as consultants.
And Mark Bavaro can coach tight ends.
Exactly. And
I'm telling you, there's got to be a pool.
I mean, at some point, after
here.
next year, David Cutcliffe will probably be let go at Duke, so he can come back.
See, I think we got a plan here for Mississippi, and I don't even live there.
Well, here's the most interesting thing, Mark. The most influential booster at Ole Miss is his father.
Right.
So, I mean, if he really wants a job, all he has to do is call Dad.
You know, I think we might have started some scuttlebutt here.
I like it. Eli Manning to Ole Miss. And maybe not this time, but maybe the next time.
Paul, Merry Christmas
Thank
to
you
you
very
and
much.
your family and all the listeners and everything. This is a great time to be a college football fan.
Mark, really enjoyed hearing from you. Randy is in Ohio.
Hey, Paul. How's it going today?
Randy, great. Thank you.
Great show all week, man. I never miss a minute of your show.
Thank you.
I always catch First Take in the morning. I watch you guys all day, basically. Love the show. Wish we had something like that, even close to that up here. But anyway, I wanted to make a comment on what you said yesterday on the Stephen A's show about Georgia and Alabama basically just being mediocre teams, you know?
I don't remember using that word, but
well, here's what you did say, Paul. You said that Michigan is a mediocre team. Now, if Notre Dame came into Alabama,
listen, I'm not being that guy, but I don't think I've ever used the word mediocre to describe Alabama or Georgia.
No, but you did use it to describe Michigan. Now, if Georgia
true.
only beat Notre Dame by 7 and Michigan beat Notre Dame by 31, then I'm guessing Georgia is way mediocre than Michigan.
No,
Plus
Georgia is not mediocre. Georgia plays a very conservative game, and when Notre Dame came down, Georgia played the kind of game it wanted to play. I thought they should have been a little more aggressive. In terms of what happened that night at Ann Arbor, I still haven't figured that game out. It was a downpour. Notre Dame seemed intimidated by the atmosphere, and they got run over.
Well, here's my final comment. You know, Michigan's ranked 14th in the country right now with 2 much better wins than Alabama's got on their resume. Right now, they beat the 15th ranked team in the country and the 16th ranked team in the country. And Alabama's their best wins against Tennessee, who lost to Georgia State, and BYU. Mm-hmm. Actually, BYU's from Utah, if you didn't remember that.
Well, there's a good chance, Randy, and thanks for misquoting everything I said yesterday on First Take. By the way, for those of you who misquote people, there are tapes, so not that we need to bring them out, but I have a pretty decent idea what I said. There's a good chance Alabama and Michigan will play. That would be a fascinating game in the Citrus Bowl. I think there's a chance of it. I hope there is. Scott is in South Carolina. Hello, Scott.
Paul, it's a pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
I will try not to misquote you regarding your comment. I think it was kind of phrased in the form of a question about, is the window closing on Saban? And I had to laugh. I mean, I think Alabama has the number 3 recruiting class, a bunch of returning starters. I see an 11-win season. I mean, they do have LSU and Georgia next year.
And Southern Cal.
They're going to beat one of those teams. Oh, yeah, of course. And we're starting out with Clay Helton and Southern Cal, which I think will be a win. But The one thing I wanted to ask you was defensive coordinator. Have you heard anything about our need
Pete
for
Golding?
a new defensive coordinator?
Listen,
yeah.
I've heard a lot of rumors, but since I've spent most of my week on the opposite direction from Tuscaloosa, I can't tell you my information is great. I don't think Saban has made any final determinations yet on his staff. Saban's doing what all coaches are doing right now. They're recruiting. They're days away from the National Signing Day, so I don't have any doubt he'll evaluate. He hasn't really had time to do it, and I think it's always a good idea when you pause a couple of days after the worst defensive performance in Alabama history. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can blame the defensive coordinator. I know that Saban likes Pete Golding. He trusted him last year when his original choice for DC blew up in his face. And
the defense hasn't been good since the days of Pruitt and of course
it's been terrible.
Coach. So I think it is time to look at that closer.
But my question is this: how can you keep changing coaches every year and get and improve the result? So
well, I think that if we took someone like Utah's defensive coordinator, they had a pretty good defense.
Well, by the way,
know who they
here, you just said something. Had Will Muschamp been fired, I have no doubt Nick Saban would have been waiting outside Ray Tanner's office trying to hire him, and so would 4 or 5 other people, by the way. Will he look around at coordinators who are losing their jobs? Yeah, I don't have any doubt that Nick Saban is not one that really cares about anyone's feelings. So he'll see what the lineup looks like and make a determination. But I think he knows just change for change's sake is not the key to success, nor is it the key to continuity at Alabama.
I just wanted to kind of address the window closing, and I think it's still wide open.
Well, listen, what I said was not related to Nick Saban as a coach. What I said was the window of a dynasty is closing, and I strongly believe that is correct. I think it would be very difficult. Alabama could win the title next year, but I don't see them winning 2 out of the next 4.
No, okay, that's fair. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, so I think they will be in the national. But
Scott, listen, I'm not going to quibble over semantics, but when you make a statement, the question I was asked Tuesday morning was about the dynasty, and I simply answered it saying I think the window is closing. Closing and closed are 2 different things, by the way. If you close a window, if you're closing a window, that means there's still a crack. So listen, anyone who wants to tell me that Alabama could win the national championship next year is not telling me anything I don't already know. But I will wait to see how the playoff turns out this year before making any predictions. And you're talking to someone who's predicted Alabama to win the title for about the last 8 years or 9 years, and I've been right about half the time. We are heading to a break. We should have been heading to a break about 4 minutes ago, but we're still getting there.
We actually are finishing on Saturday this week, so guys can get to the President's Cup in Australia. So the golf's supposed to be over at 3 o'clock, and the SEC Championship kicks at 4:10. So one way or another, I'll be able to watch it no matter what. My caddy he says it's the worst day of his job is a Saturday while we're playing and Georgia's playing, because I have the phone in his bib the whole time, and he says I could care less about the golf shot. I just want to get back to my phone in between shots. But you know what? It takes your mind off of it a little bit, especially for winning. For winning, it kind of pumps you up. But in between shots, it's always good fun to watch it. I remember watching the Georgia-South Carolina game with Dustin Johnson a couple of years ago, walking down a fairway together in between each shot. So we all are big college football fans, and we enjoy watching it while we're out there. Well, we've pretty much turned ourselves into a year-round sport, and if you take the fall off like we used to back in the day, you feel so far behind the 8 ball, it's almost difficult to catch up if you come back just to start the new year. So a lot of the big names are playing in the fall now, and these tournaments are getting a lot of good notoriety with big name players playing. And we got 18 guys playing this week in a great field that Tiger's hosting. So we enjoy making the money. So these guys want to keep paying us to come play. We're going to keep playing. We need Tiger. Tiger is the lone wolf that moves the needle for us, and he drives the ratings for us. And when he's playing well, we all make more money. So we hope he lives to 60 and wins once a year for the next 15 years. So he's the man. He's the reason we're all playing for a lot more money than we used to, and we all respect that for him. And the way he's come back from his injuries and other things in his life and come back to win that Masters is just an incredible feat, in my opinion. And he's in as good a shape as ever. I was hanging out with him this week, and he's fired up to go play and represent the country next week and be a first playing captain. So I think he's in a good spot in his life, and we hope he continues to play well.
Before you go, Kevin, obviously the game is Saturday, and you will be paying close attention. I realize you're a Georgia man, but can the Dogs do it?
I think it's going to be highly interesting. They're obviously very potent on offense. We have one of the best defenses in the country. Our offense hasn't showed its best play yet, and I think we can attack them on defense. So if somehow we can get Burrow out of the pocket and get him on his back a few times, we can mess him up a little bit and somehow score. I think we'd have to score 28 points to win the game.
Welcome back to the program, and we're glad you're here. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Joseph is up next in Mississippi. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, Mr. Paul. How are you today?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Good. Listen, I just want to ask, I've heard some rumblings about, which I don't really understand why, like who our next head coach is going to be. And I agree with you. I think it was really dirty and sad situation the way they fired Coach Luke. I thought he should have had another year under his belt at least with those recruiting classes. But and we'll see what you thought about. Somebody called me today and said that they thought that Lane Kiffin, but I know I watched the show, but said something about he might go to Arkansas. I know John Day was vouching for that, but if they're called there about it, and I want to get your opinion on that. What do you think, and who we think we should get? I know Mike Leach did just get his contract extended.
Yeah, listen, as far as Lane is concerned, I think he could have the Arkansas job if he wanted it. If you were objective about rosters, Ole Miss has a much better roster. I mean, Plumlee would play well to Lane Kiffin's offensive prowess.
Yes, sir,
I think the key. I think what some people are missing about Lane Kiffin, and I'll just give you an observation. There's more to Lane Kiffin than just Lane Kiffin. It's the staff that he would bring, and I've heard some names. I'm not going to say anything because these guys have jobs right now, but.
I understand.
I would tell you, if Lane Kiffin gets hired at either, if Lane gets hired at Ole Miss, I think he will blow you away by some of the people he brings.
Well, that might be happening then. That's what I was thinking. That's what the phone calls I've had today, that someone mentioned that to me.
There was a story making the rounds that Ole Miss folks were going to see him today, so. I think that story will either be confirmed or denied, or at least reported positively or negatively by the end of the day.
I believe so. Also, I want to give a shout out to Larry from Shelby with his 44 beers. That's unbelievable. It's like that's why my boy Stu called me and.
Yeah, I just wonder. I don't want to listen. Wild. We don't want to encourage anything here, but I'm just amazed that anyone can do that.
And that's crazy. I was like, you know what? If I knew I could get in touch with Larry, I think it'd be funny. It'd be fun. Man, boy Stu would drive down to Shelby, wherever that is in Alabama.
Yeah, Shelby is south of Birmingham.
I think that'd be a great piece for the show.
Yeah. No, listen. Thank you, Joseph. I mean, how many ounces of beer? So, 24 times 16. What's that?
Too much.
So, 384. 384 ounces of beer in your body? I mean, I would like...
And probably a few cigarettes.
There's no telling what else. You're absolutely right. Rock is up next. Hey, Rock.
Hey, Paul. been years since I talked to you. I was the one that called for Muschamp to Florida. And I'm here to defend Pete Golding.
Sure.
It's all about attrition at Alabama. Let's play the what-if game. Quentin Williams had eligibility left, so did Mac Wilson.
Sure.
Those two back with Dylan Moses, we're not hearing any complaints about Golding.
No, you're right.
Golden has the same philosophy as Saban. Get pressured with 4, leave cornerbacks on the island. Our past 2 recruiting classes, our number 1 defensive linemen in both of them have abandoned us. They were both edge rushers. Terrell Lewis, great edge rusher. Something wrong with him this year. Just didn't see the performance we were expecting. So that's the big thing. It's just attrition. How many defensive linemen do we have injured? They like to rotate 6 to 8 guys per game. And at some points, we were having 7 and 8 freshmen between linebackers and defensive line and safeties. So it's just one of those freak things where guys leave for the NFL early, guys don't even come to class, and injuries. I mean, could you imagine Quentin Williams, a healthy Dylan Moses, and Mac?
Yeah, but
Wilson?
you know, Rock, listen, I mean, you make a great point, but that's football, and
it is.
In Alabama, it has to be frustrating, but Saban knows pretty quickly. You know, you couldn't have predicted Quentin Williams because, quite frankly, nobody knew who he was before the season. But
1 year wonder. I mean, we all expected one more year out of him, but redshirt sophomore.
I said this the other day to somebody, and the transfer portal will end up getting everyone. But you know, Nick Saban maybe more than most because not the transfer portal and the draft. I mean, the combination of those two is driving coaches crazy.
Attrition. It just depleted our defense this year. Between the past 2 number 1 recruits, hang on 1 second. Past 2 number 1 recruits that we've had in our recruiting classes, both gone, both edge rushers. LeBron Ray going down, Dylan Moses going down. Oh, I can't even think of the other senior interior linebacker that got hurt also.
It's been tough. Hey, hate to run. We are heading to a break. I knew we were late. Kind of the story of my life. I'll be right back. We welcome you back here to the program, and let's see if we can squeeze a few more calls in. And Jordan is in North Carolina. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. First of all, outside of Coach Orgeron, who do you think would be the SEC Coach of the Year?
I would probably vote for Jeremy Pruitt, considering how now I realize he was responsible for the beginning of the year, but I thought the way he brought that team back was spectacular.
Yeah, I agree. He's the one I was thinking of. I thought Dan Mullen might be another
He did a good
decent
job.
choice. Yeah, I mean, he put a lot of stock into Felipe Franks, and he got hurt. And
I also thought Mark Stoops did a really nice job with about a third or fourth string quarterback.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. He totally changed the offense there. It was pretty fun to watch Kentucky play for sure.
But I tell you, I thought Jeremy Pruitt had to get his team to a bowl game, and when they were staring down the barrel of a gun early in the year, they looked like there was no chance they were going to make it.
No, everybody was thinking 1 or 2 wins max for the season after how the season began. So for them to potentially have 8 wins, that's highly impressive. I definitely agree with that for sure. My other question to you is this. A lot of people are saying Alabama, Virginia, the Orange Bowl. Who in the world wants to watch that?
Yeah, is that what the latest speculation is? I have not seen that.
Yeah, I saw that. That was one of the predictions that they're talking about with Alabama and Virginia, because the likelihood of Virginia playing Clemson and losing, I think that naturally puts them, I think, in the Orange Bowl.
I mean, hold on a second. I think Alabama right now is, if I read the tea leaves correctly, now Georgia goes to the Sugar Bowl, then I think Florida would likely go to the Orange Bowl.
Okay. All right, Florida and Virginia, that may not be
bad. No, I think what you're going to see
is
Alabama right now, because they fell behind Auburn, would end up going to the Citrus Bowl to play a Big Ten team.
Oh, boy.
Could be Michigan, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know how Nick Saban's going to keep a bunch of motivated
Well, the
kids,
bottom line is he's not going to be
do
able
that.
to because players like
No.
Najee Harris and the wide receivers who are coming out, they're not going to want to play in that game.
No, and they're not. And I think that's also going to lead to the expansion of the playoff to have some of these other bowl games matter to keep some of these kids actually playing college football instead of them thinking about the draft.
And you know what?
Because
I don't
they think
blame
of the
them.
playoff.
And I know that sounds.
No, I don't either.
But if you've got your future in front of you and you're used to playing for championships, and now you've got to find a way.
No,
I mean, I just don't
absolutely.
see any upside. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree. Those college coaches aren't going to pay those guys' bills. So, absolutely, I don't blame them one bit for going early. If that's their choice and their ability to be able to do that, then they should be able to do that. I just wish those games mattered just a little bit more for those guys, and they're just not going to, I think, until they expand the playoff.
No,
That's just the way it is.
Hey, Jordan, thank you for the call. We have an hour to go, and don't forget tomorrow we're in Atlanta. Our guest list tomorrow is pretty unbelievable. We'll talk to all the football people and Hall of Famers and legends and, of course, Commissioner Sankey. But we will also talk to Ric Flair. Jeff Foxworthy will drop by to say hello in his hometown. So a lot of football and a lot of entertainment, other than the host, of course.